So I remember till this day, the very first time I started contemplating moving out of my mom's house, okay? And when I was moving out, I was looking up for apartments and I saw apartments between 2,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, apartments that cost a lot of money basically. And I was like, yo, what is my goal with renting? Do I want a fancy place that looks nice, is very modern and has all the features? Or do I want somewhere where I feel safe, comfortable, has a decent commute, and I'm going to be able to build some wealth while I'm actually there? And obviously, what I wanted was a fancy place. Let's be honest, okay? I'm dumb like that. But overall, what I needed was somewhere that was safe, I felt comfortable in, and had a decent commute. Now, because I work from home, anywhere was gonna have a decent commute, okay? So I went ahead and I opted for what I actually needed. And what I needed was that, okay? Now, by the way, I always compare this to one simple example. You can go, for example, to a fancy restaurant where a burger is like $20, $50, and you go to Five Guys, you're still eating a burger, but the experience is a lot more different. But it's better to eat that Five Guys burger, this same taste, much times even better. But it's better to have that until you're actually able to afford the fancy place with the ocean view and the fancy this and the fancy waiter. It's just better to wait and to know exactly what you're looking for. So in this video, I'm gonna tell you exactly how to actually lower your rent bill. How much money should you spend on your rent bill? And some general advice to make sure you don't spend all your days renting and renting and renting. Your apartment is nice, but you don't own anything, and that's really not what you want. So as always, guys, like this video and top out, also subscribe and hit the bell so you get notified. Now, the very first thing is, guys, I'm weird. I'm a weirdo. I know that, okay? So when I picked, for example, my apartment, it was only about 7.5% of my income. Now, I have an above average income, but even at the average income of $40,000 per month, that would only be somewhere about like 22 to 23%, meaning it would still be below average what an average person would be paying, which is using about a third of their income on rent, okay? So my whole goal was I wanted to be extreme. I wanted to be able to go ahead and rent for a while to be able to buy something that I actually own. And that's why I was able to do it in about a year. In a year, I went from renting to actually buying a home and paying cash for it because I was saving up for years, and to actually say, oh, this is my home now. I don't have to pay any rent. But I knew what my objective was. It wasn't to invite my friends over and say, hey guys, this is my fancy, luxurious apartment that I pay per month. It was to, hey guys, this is my apartment. I'm here for a while. It's not mine. It's nice, but I'm planning to buy a home, and this is why I'm here, okay? I'm not trying to impress absolutely anyone. So overall, guys, here's what I really recommend, okay? And by the way, again, the average person spends about 34% of their income on rent. And that tends to be around like $1,800 per month on rent. To me, that is a ton of money, but it's all relative to where you live and also to the amount of money you make. And there's one thing that I want you guys to actually just keep from this video, and it's basically always use common sense with your decisions, okay? So there's this very common rule of thumb out there that says, hey, don't spend more than 33% of your monthly income on rent, right? It's not a good idea. It doesn't allow you to go ahead and build up some savings, some emergencies, some investments, a down payment, whatever it is you actually want to do, because if you spend way too much, you have nothing left over. But this rule of thumb is pretty stupid if you don't use common sense, because obviously if you have an above average income, then in reality, spending 30% of your income is probably way too much, okay? You can probably say, I'm gonna spend a lot less because I make more money and use that money to get to my goal faster. If you don't make that much money, then a third of your income might not be enough to actually rent anything. So you might actually need something a little bit more expensive. And I remember I read an article about this girl, and she went to New York and she wanted to live in the city, and she was able to say, hey, I'm gonna rent something nice, but I'm not gonna spend money on going out or buying expensive things. This way I can afford this apartment and still be able to save. So sometimes it's okay to go above what this rule of thumb actually is, as long as you go down somewhere else. So if you know you're just gonna spend, for example, like a lot of money on food, say, hey, I'm gonna spend less money here, grab this money, put it on this apartment, and then still be able to save some money, invest some money, and do everything else I have to do. But for the people that go ahead and say, I don't care, I'm just gonna try to squeeze into this apartment and figure it out later, usually it is a terrible, terrible idea. Usually it is a terrible idea. So what should you be looking for when you're looking for an apartment? I said this already, okay? But overall, look for somewhere where you feel safe, where you feel comfortable, and where you have a decent, tolerable commute. Now, don't confuse me here, because this can actually be taken and used to actually get something you can't afford. Here's what I mean, okay? When I was living in the Bronx, I felt pretty safe because I got used to hearing gunshots. When I was living in the Bronx, I was comfortable living in a closet because that's all I basically knew. And when I was in the Bronx, I was fine commuting for 2.5 hours because I said, hey, it's what I have to do. And in the meantime, I was reading audiobooks. My point is, don't confuse what I'm saying by saying, hey, I only feel safe in the rich people's neighborhoods, because those are just feelings, okay? You gotta feel, for example, safe in what you're actually able to afford. Don't forget what the purpose of renting actually is. Now, I want to go into more detail in this video right now with that, okay? So overall, for me, the purpose of renting, it's awesome. Renting is pretty cool. I don't see a problem with renting. Renting is awesome. You're allowed to use somebody's toilet without being responsible if it breaks. That's kind of nasty for me to say this way, but I really want you guys to understand this. Renting, you have an apartment at your disposal. You're able to use it. If anything breaks per se, that's not within the contract and the lease or whatever, you don't have to cover that. It's 100% their liability, and all you're being like charged is like a fixed fee, but everything else they are responsible for. There are clear benefits to renting, okay? So renting is going to allow you to be able to save money if you do it correctly. It's going to allow you to be able to pay off your debts, save for emergencies, start investing, save for a down payment. It is a service being provided for you, but don't believe the hype when people say the big con in renting is, Tommy, if you rent, you're wasting money, you're throwing it at a hole. The answer is that's not true, because you know, I'm not making movies because I don't want to waste money on Netflix, right? I'm not gonna make a movie. I just pay Netflix. That's it. Same thing with renting. I'm not gonna buy a home when I can't afford it. I'm gonna wait until I'm actually able to afford it. That's the whole idea, right? So it's okay to rent, but if you rent for way too long, you're wasting money. Okay, so it's very important that you run, for example, a rent versus buy calculator. Now that calculator, look it up on Google. Google shows you. It shows you exactly at what point is it going to become too expensive to actually keep renting? Is it at year 5, year 10, year 20? And what I mean is, okay, if you're in New York and a home costs $500,000 and renting a room costs $1,000 or $2,000 per month, it takes a long time before buying a home makes sense, because it's so different in price, okay? So sometimes in New York, in certain areas, it never makes sense to buy a home. And that's why people, for example, like Ramit Sethi, which is like this big finance guy in the whole finance world, he rents, and he's like a millionaire, I think it is, okay? And he's renting because he's like, the math just doesn't make any sense. And sometimes it is like that, but sometimes it's not like that. When I moved, for example, to Puerto Rico, and I saw, hey, I'm paying X on rent and I can buy a home for X in 5 years, it's gonna make sense for me to actually just own a home as long as I stay there for 5 years. The answer is I went ahead and I bought a home because it made financial sense in that moment. But now things have changed and I'm trying to move, whatever. So it's important you understand your decisions are not permanent. And sometimes you will take an L, but that's a part of the game. But just try to make the best decision you possibly can and use common sense. Now, here's the last part of what I actually want to talk about here. There are always some very cheap excuses like, Tommy, this place is ghetto. I don't feel comfortable. I don't want to rent a home. I don't want a room. I don't want to have any inconvenience. The what is it called? The what is it called when you go somewhere, the commute is a little too long or whatever. These are cheap excuses. But to say, Tommy, like, oh, this is gonna be temporary. Like, I'm renting, but it's temporary. I'm gonna be renting, but you know, it's for a little while. So I'm gonna not spend so much money over here. That's fine. If you wanna rent something nice, that's fine, no problem, okay? But the point is, you don't wanna exaggerate your rent because of cheap excuses like, I just feel better here, or whatever it is, okay? Being comfortable is very important, but being comfortable at the cost of being financially stable is pretty stupid, okay? It's okay to rent a room for a while you figure things out. It's okay to live like a little further away from your job, even though you have to commute because you can't afford it, okay? And that's fine, that's more than fine, okay? So I just wanna say that, okay? And overall, guys, the only thing I'm really saying here is, it's okay to use public transportation, it's okay not to go out and eat, and overall, just use common sense. Whenever you're making a personal financial decision, use common sense. Rules of thumbs are super cool. They help you make quick decisions or whatever. But overall, rules of thumbs are only supposed to be like a general rule to help you make a better decision. So when you hear, hey, only spend 33% of your monthly income, net income of your take-home pay, whatever, per month on rent. Make sure that actually makes sense. For me to spend, for example, a bunch of money on an apartment made no sense. So I went ahead, I got something super, super cheap, and that was fine for me. That made the most sense. But if you're making, for example, $1,000, where are you gonna live for like $300? You know, it might be time to raise up your income. It might be time to do something else. It might be time to stay with your parents a little longer. It all depends. But renting is not a waste of money. And if you find yourself spending more than half of your income, use common sense, because if you're spending half your income, but you're still able to save money, might not be a big deal. If you're saving like 10, 20%, okay, might not be a big deal, okay? But if you find yourself spending half your money and you're basically on the edge of insolvency, then that's an obvious sign you shouldn't be doing that, okay? But that is it for this video. Thanks for watching. Comment down below rent so I know you made it all the way to the end. And as always, guys, like, subscribe, hit the bell to get notified. And on top of that, up here is another banger. Over here is my face. Subscribe. And as always, long-term team officially out.